Hello and welcome along to our next Studio Lab tutorial. In this edition we will be showing you how to make a freestanding clock with a theme of some kind, and that theme can be done either as letters and words or numbers, and how to make that clock freestanding. So we'll be showing you these standing techniques, either vertical or angled slightly back. The equipment we have with us today, we're going to need for this, you're going to need some of our flat sheets of wood, some sandpaper. You might want to print out some alphabets on your printer at home. That makes it a whole lot easier to cut those letters, stick them on the wood and cut them out. You can get some very accurate results, or you can draw your letters freehand, that's your choice. We have some scissors, some glue sticks, pencil and ruler. Now you're going to have to go and purchase your own standard quartz clock movement, battery powered, very cheap to obtain, and they usually come with their own fixings here. We've got a range of hands and the little fixings.
Where would you buy them from?
Well, here in Dubai, a good place to get those from would be Dragon Mart. You can also go to, there's a couple of modelling shops here in Dubai that you can go along to. Anywhere that does sort of craft, hobbies, and modelling type equipment will have standard clock movements. So joining me today to do his version of this project is Ismail.
Hi, I'm Ismail Demerji and I'm 11 years old.
And we're going to be working together through the project. I'm actually going to take you through something very similar to this. I might change my wording when I get to that. Ismail's going to work on an appearance all of his own. He's free to work with us on ours as well. And we're going to be doing our letters so they are looking three-dimensional and standing off the backing surface. This one from our door sign that we did to illustrate the letters there. And we've got them looking three-dimensional and popping out of the surface of this clock as well. So we're going to start first of all by designing a shape for our backing. Now, using this as a rough guide, I'm just going to go for a plain square or rectangle backing. Based on this one here, I know that it's going to be that tall. It is the entire width of a piece of our material, so I'm just going to go ahead and chop that off. Make it a little bit more aesthetic. I might round those two top corners off. Ismail's going to take a pencil and a ruler, and he's going to work out his own shape for his backing. Using this as a rough guide for the scale, you can do your own. You can have a circle. Remember though, that our finished outcome is going to be freestanding. So we will be using that halving joint stand, either one of those or two of those to make the clock stand. So you're going to go ahead and start to mark yours out.
Yep.
I'm going to draw my line to do mine on here. So we usually have with us, always a good idea in our projects to have yourself a basic graphics kit or stationery kit. The very least you're going to need is a pencil and a ruler. I'm just going to draw that line across and start to cut my shape like so. Okay. Now on this project, you're going to generate a lot of waste pieces. Don't throw them away at all, because even the smallest waste piece can be used for a single letter or a single number. The one I've just generated by cutting the top off my sheet is going to be used for the two halves of my stand. In a moment I'll be cutting that down the middle and I'll be making my two stand pieces out of that. So I'm going to place that to one side. I'm going to now draw, and I'll show you how to save time doing this. On the top two corners of my piece, I'm going to draw an arc. I'm going to cut that arc out, but this little piece of wood I'm going to keep. I'm going to flip it over to here, and I'm going to use it as a template to mark out that corner, so the top two curves of my design are going to look the same. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off one of my curved corners, but I'm going to keep the little corner piece that comes out. I'm going to use it as a template to mark out the other side. I'll do one first. You okay?
Yeah.
So I've got my backing piece for the main body of the clock. Ismail's got his, the shape of his almost finished. From the two pieces, the one piece, sorry, I cut off my rectangle. I've now divided that into two, and I'm now working on the 2 feet that are going to be the stands of my piece. Now I've measured 4 centimeters from each side. Remember, we've got these straight sides here as parallel lines, so we need to make use of those. And I'm going to go into my base 4 centimeters as well. So I'm cutting in 4, and I'm cutting in a distance of 4 from the side. So my line is on there, and of course the thickness of our halving joint is the same as the thickness of the wood we're using. So what I'm doing is I'm placing my wood onto there, and on the other side of that I'm marking the line for my halving joint. Called so because I take half out of this piece, half out of my base piece, and this is going to slide in there. So now Ismail has got the top of his shape. We need to move ahead and do your little, you've got some nice pieces there that these could be part of your stand if you want.
Yeah.
So let's move ahead at the bottom down here and mark out a distance where you think you want your 2 little feet to go. Okay, I've moved mine in 4 from the side and also 4 up. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those out. And just to remind us again from our previous classes, we're going to cut on the inside of that line, trying not to make it too loose when this goes in. It should be a nice firm fit. So because we're using the halving joint today, where we remove half the material from one piece, half from the other piece to slot in, I'm just going to go ahead and show you the technique for cutting that halving joint and making sure we don't get this happening on our joint here. The key to it is when you want to turn a corner, you stop pushing. So let me illustrate on this piece here. I'm going to cut 2 straight lines to start with. In and out, and in and out. And then I'm going to go into one of those lines I've cut, and when I get to the end, you stop. And all you do is rotate the wood. If your wood starts bouncing, obviously you push down a little firmer. You just rotate the wood. Once you're in position, you push again, and this little piece of wood would come loose. So for me, I've gone into one of my cuts. Now push. And that piece will come away.
Okay.
Okay, so 2 cuts first, go back into one of your cuts and stop, spin the wood, and then cut out the little part. So now we've got one of ours, why don't we just take any old piece of wood from our scrap pieces and just try that for size. It should be able to go in
Perfectly, almost.
but not fall out. So the key to this is, if you cut one a little loose, when you go ahead and do the next one now, make sure that that's not loose. Because if you do the next one tight, it's still going to grip your wood.
Can you pass me the ruler, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
So we're now going to go ahead and make our 2 feet for our clock. Cutting out the design. For me, I'm just doing a straight line on one side and a curve on the other. Straight line there, curve there. And remember, because we're making 2 feet, I want mine to be the same. I only have to do one, and then I can use this as a template to draw around for the second one. Now, when we started the introduction to this today, we mentioned the idea that you might want your clock leaning back.
Yeah.
So before you start doing that, you might want to consider this. I've gone for vertical, so mine's going to stand straight. All it means is, let me just show you on here, I'm going to use this as my template for my second piece. So let me draw around it first. This is going to be the shape of my second piece. But all it means is, if you want your clock to tilt, instead of marking your joint vertically, you do it at a slight angle. So let me draw one on to illustrate. If I was to do that, my clock, instead of standing vertical, would have a slight lean. If you go too severe with that angle, the weight of the clock might fall backwards. So just slightly more than 90, and it will give you a nice lean
and
on
also
there.
keep in mind that there's this heavy thing behind it, the battery holder.
Correct. But also, if you put too many letters and numbers on there, they also form a bit of weight that are going to force it back as well. So just a slight slope if you want to go at an angle. So I'm going to carry on and do mine vertically. Yep. Now, too small for these joints is actually a good thing. I've just discovered I've cut down a little bit too small. I've got a choice. I either go back to my blade and shave off more wood, or I take my sandpaper, fold it several times, and I can just work the inside of that joint to make it fit. I think I've got a little bit more than my sandpaper will remove, so I'm going to go back into my blade and take a small shaving. So I've got my backing shape and my feet done. How are you getting on?
Well, it's a bit tight still, so I need to do a bit more sanding.
Okay. So the other one is going to be the same distance over there, right?
Yes.
So we're just going to take that across to there. And we're going to come in that far. And this will be your next joint area. Okay. Now for Ismail here, he has to be really careful because we've got a narrow piece here. If he were to get almost close with this piece and force it, there's a very good chance this piece would snap. So be extra careful about that. Okay. So I've got the backing and I've got the 2 feet ready. I think it might be worth at this time considering where our clock might go. Now the clock that you've purchased would come with its own hands. So you have to work out a distance where you want it to be clear of there. These are made of very light metal, so you can even snip them with scissors if you want to trim them down. I'm going to leave mine full size, and I'm just going to have it swing by that foot there. So I want the center of my clock. It's just about going to be there. I'm going to put the hole for the center of my clock in that position. Okay, I'm going to do the words I'm late on here. I''M LATE. So from the waste pieces I've started to generate, do I have any pieces big enough? No. Okay, so I need to start a new sheet here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start to draw those. You can, as I say, print these off on your computer and cut them out with paper. I want mine to be a little sort of cartoonish, slightly untidy on here, so I'm not using my ruler. I'm not caring too much about the style of my letters. I'm just quickly getting the words generated.
Don, can I please borrow that pencil when you're done with it?
There's one right here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. My letters are roughly the same size as each other. And I can make the little apostrophe on there out of a piece of waste wood. So I'm going to go ahead and chop my letters now and get them ready to fix on. Letters have got lots of those, well mine anyway, the style of mine, I've got lots of those situations where I need to stop pushing if I want to create a turn. So bear that in mind as you start to cut out the specific shapes now.
Would it be okay for people's stands if it's a little bit loose and shaky?
Yeah, we can secure it with the glue gun. So we need to make your second one now. Okay. So my letters are cut out. What I can do with my sandpaper, I've got two options here. I can use the table of my jigsaw machine. I can hold my sandpaper flat and I can clean the surfaces of the letters. That's removing those pencil lines I put on earlier, which I don't need now. And I'm going to end up with some really nice white looking letters on there. I can use a pencil eraser to remove those pencil lines. But the most important thing I need to do is remove those shards of wood that always happen after we've used our saw. They come away very quickly, and you want your letters to be very nice to look at. You don't want them to be a little unsightly and untidy. You can see these ragged edges along there and what a difference it makes. We definitely don't want that. So we spoke earlier about making our letters more three-dimensional, making them pop off the background and stand up off the surface. What we're going to do, Ismail's going to do this in a moment, we're going to take some of the waste wood we've generated and we're going to produce for ourselves a whole pile of these little squares and rectangular pieces that we have here. So I've got my pile on the side here ready to use. On the back of my letters, you're going to get an adult to help you with the glue gun. I'm just going to put a few spots of hot glue gun on the back of there. Take some of these little pieces and choose pieces that aren't going to be seen from the front. All right, we don't want these to be seen when we look at the letters. We want them to be behind the letters, but not seen when we look at it front on. Okay, so what they do is they make the letters stand up off the surface, and it generates a little shadow on there behind each letter, which really does help it look more three-dimensional. So I've almost done these ones now. I've got my T and my E to go. So a little bit of glue on the back of each one. The back of the scrap pieces, the waste pieces that we used, and then position them onto your background. Now, it's worth saying at this point, before you go ahead and do this, you might want to spend some time doing a theme in coloured pencils or markers. It's always best done first before we stick these on. And the letters themselves, what you've created now is a little handle on the back, so you can hold those as you're applying some colour to each one. If you're going to do colour on your letters, make sure you get the white edges as well. You don't want to see beautiful colour from the front, and when you turn it, you get the white edge. That'll look a little unsightly. Now I'm going to start positioning my pieces, and I'm going to do a sort of random kind of up-down arrangement on here, which will just make it a little more interesting to look at. I'm not going to do my two words entirely in a straight line. And I've remembered I've got to leave space there for the little apostrophe. So I'm going to do my next word. Put a little piece of waste wood under my glue gun. So I've given mine a theme, obviously to do with time. Something I am quite a lot in my life is that I'm often quite late. So I'm late, I've got a little apostrophe to go in there. My letters are done, I'm happy with those. I know the position my clock's going to be in, my feet are done. So the next move from me is I'm going to show you how to drill a little hole in there and start to assemble the clock movement itself. So when you get your clock movement, you'll notice out of the movement you have something called the spindle. This is the center of the clock. Now obviously all of that, including a little thread on there, has to go through our wood. How do we make the hole? We're going to make the hole first of all using our wood turning tool. Ismail has decided this is the position of his clock on here, so I'm also demonstrating to him how we do this. We push and turn with our wood cutting tool.
Be careful not to splinter the wood around it.
Correct, and also be careful not to have your fingers in the way at the back, or to make sure you're not going to risk that, put a piece of waste wood on the back as you go through. So we make the hole first big enough for our blade of our machine to go over. Then what you'll find is you get various things with your clock. We got these black washers, you get this little nut here to put it on. All of those have a hole in the center, which is the diameter that we need. So I'm going to use this little washer as a guide. I'm going to place this on there and draw myself a circle. So when I put this over my blade now, I've got an idea of how much wood I need to cut out. Let me just do that for you. That action is similar to the action that was happening earlier where we had to stop pushing before we turned. All I was doing was putting that over there, and it was the wood that was rotating, so the blade stays vertical. The clock movement then should be able to go through the back of the wood, and then the little nut fixture that we got, that goes on, and then I have my series of hands. And for this clock, I was given an hour hand, I was given a minute hand, and I have a second hand. Now these are so thin you can snip them down with scissors. In fact, on mine here, my finished clock here, this one was going to hit my letter E, so I've trimmed a bit off that. Okay, so it swings by and doesn't make contact with it. The others should be able to stay as they are. So we're going to go ahead and finish both of our clocks. Ismail's got some very complex shapes on here that he wants to do. We're going to see you with 2 assembled clocks towards the end of this video. So I hope you enjoyed our latest Studio Lab video in which we made our freestanding clocks with a letters or numbers theme. You can find all the details of this in the descriptions below. You can come along to our centre here on the first floor of Times Square and Shakeside Road, or you can apply for our home study kit and do everything we've taken you through today in the comfort of your own home. So thank you, Ismail.
Thank you very much, Don.
See you next time.